Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to the Long Term Podcast. I'm your host, Advin Villa. Today, we have University of Alberta psych student minoring in anthropology, Maddie Cayer. We will discuss the struggles of generalized anxiety disorder, emotional outbursts, and overstimulation on friendships, relationships, and family, defeating comparison, and running marathons to keep up with others, letting go of the victim identity, and living life in the present. Everyone, welcome. All right. Welcome, Maddie Cayer, to the Long Term Podcast. Yeah, I'm so thankful you're here with us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to coming on here for a long time.
Yeah, so can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, first of all, my name is Madeline. I was born and raised in Edmonton, but we moved to Sherwood Park with me and my twin brother, who I'm 1 minute older from. And yeah, I just always grew up as like a happy-go-lucky kid, you know, full of energy lots, but all that energy sometimes comes with like a lot of stress and a lot of crazy energy, crazy talkativeness. And yeah, my life has been a whirlwind ever since I was a little kid.
Yeah, so with this energy, were you always just bubbly as a kid? Was it hard to stay still?
Well, you know, yeah, I recently got diagnosed with ADHD as well. And as a kid, Ben and I were always just polar opposites. Like I was the social butterfly going up to strangers, you know, I'd reach out for people's hands and like say hi and just was never really scared of anything. And I just thought I could take on the world. But lately, you know, as I've gotten older, I've just realized like, oh my gosh, all this is kind of like, it's really starting to sit in. And I'm just like, what is going on? Why am I so sweaty all the time?
Yeah. I think with a lot of kids, hey, we tend to, like, when you're a kid, you don't know what's going on. You just act based on impulse and like the stimuli you get. And then, you know, if you like Transformers, you'll just like hone in on that. And if you feel angry, you'll just lash out. And then in retrospect, you find the answers when you grow up. You go, oh, that's why. You find the answers to the behaviors that you underwent as a kid. So I know we one of the topics that we're going to talk about is generalized anxiety disorder.
Yes.
And can you tell me your experience with generalized anxiety disorder, otherwise known as GAD, right?
Yes, GAD. Yep. Psychological terms, you know
how
it.
that has impacted your friendships, relationships, and family dynamics.
Oh man, okay, so I've suffered with anxiety my whole life. Ever since I was kind of 14, we moved from houses a lot. So we had our first house, which is right in like Lakelandish area. And then once we sold that place, we actually built a brand new house. And I was so excited, you know, watching it built and having our own rooms was such an exciting feeling. But just having those little breaks of like those little new changes and new adaptations and having such a new environment for such a young and vibrant age just gave me a lot of emotions I didn't know how to deal with.
Well, when you're constantly moving from house to house, is this the second time you've moved?
This is the third time, actually.
Third time.
Yes.
Yeah, I find that I also moved from house to house. Like I was from the Philippines, then went to Canada, then went to another house, moved from this Gym Common all the way to Greenwood, then Greenwood to Summerwood. And it's just like that the stability as a kid, hey, that's needed.
It's needed almost just to have a good foundation, to have those proper behavior patterns sit in place. Because I noticed once moving and not having time to sit and settle with those changes just gave me a lot of impulsivity that I just didn't really grow out of at this age. As you can tell, I'm very fidgety as I am. But yeah, and it really just gave me perspective as going into all these studies with psychology, just really having some introspection on my like physical behaviors, emotional behaviors, my emotional responses just really gave me kind of a good perspective and a good understanding of, hey, like this might actually be something I can deal with, I can change, and that I can just analyze in my past and help me with my future behaviors.
Yeah, no, that's a beauty with psychology, hey, is when you learn, you go to each class and it's just so applicable to your everyday life. And then when you think about when you learn about Freud, about like the psychoanalytical theory, and like then there's talk therapy and there's cognitive behavioral therapy, and you apply that to your everyday life, and then there's also, you derive a lot of answers because you go, oh, that's why I was fidgety, or oh, that strained relationship, that could be a cause of this personality trait that is linked to this, and then you're constantly learning and learning and learning. So what's kind of the biggest thing you've learned in psychology from yourself that you've learned, whether it be about your past or you right now?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is honestly to face, you are your own enemy, and you are your biggest fears are just right in front of you. I've done a whole lot of running in my life. I've done a lot of running away from people and pushing people away and bottling things up so much internally that I don't know how to deal with them, and I lash them out unhealthily. And especially in those relationships we were talking about, I've had a lot of family strain, especially with my mom and my brother. I love them so much, those two people, but not being able to deal with these emotions has caused a vicious cycle for myself. So honestly, just learning and accepting my flaws and taking them with a grain of salt, as in like I can change and I can learn from them and I can find new ways to deal with things, has really helped me, because I've just been very adverse to change and adverse to new things. And just anxiety is all about the unknown, about what we're nervous about because we don't face it and we don't understand it, right?
And that's phenomenal that you've learned to accept the flaws and the bad. And I think that's the biggest takeaway I've learned as well. And just my self-development is it's never going to be perfect.
No,
and
we're
you can
not
try
perfect.
and try every single day. You can try to be perfect, but that's such a futile endeavor. Because what is perfection? That's
exactly.
just, it's unattainable.
No.
That's just, if everything was perfect, then what's the point?
Yeah, humans are flawed. We all have our own different personality traits. We're not AI robots. We all do things differently. And that's something that I just learned. Like, I'm not going to be the same person as somebody else. And comparison has been a very, very big thing for me.
And we'll touch up on that.
We will. Yes, they're all interchanged.
The second one. Can you discuss some strategies or techniques that have helped you manage emotional outbursts and overstimulation in social settings?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of overstimulation for me comes just from the physical aspects. So I find, like I said, embracing it and just facing what's happening and going on has been really helpful. I've been actually going to a local studio that's really close to Millennium where I work. And it's called like Pilates and Spin Effects. I love Pilates and I love cycling, and just being able to channel all of that like fidgeting and emotional, like worked up and built up in me, and using exercise as a healthy, positive, like way to let that all out has been really awesome for me. And I go 3 to 4 times a week, and it's just intense cardio, and it just really helps me get it all out and just calm down,
Seneca has this quote, and it goes, "You treat the body rigorously so the mind doesn't become disobedient," right? When you're sweating, when you're going at it, going as hard as you can, or not even going as hard as you can, but just some movement, right? It definitely alleviates the anxiety. And that's what I find. That's why I go to the gym. That's why I run. Because without it, life's just so unbearable.
Yes, being still is awful.
Yeah, when you're just laying there and when you're just dormant and you're not creating movement, you get so caught up in your head, and then you look for problems. I mean, or you magnify the problems and they consume you. They become you. You become your problems. And that's definitely just a lot of people who do not have a way of coping, and then they lash out. And as you mentioned earlier, we end up hurting those that we love, that we do not want to hurt. And I know everybody's guilty of it. I don't think I've ever met someone who's just a saint 24/7. Because we are flawed and we do succumb to those irrational emotions, and we lash out and end up hurting the people that we love. Now, when that happens for you, how do you repair?
It's really hard to repair when you're such an emotional and such a loving person, because those people we trust the most, that's why we're able to hurt them. It's because we feel the most comfortable with them, which is so, so difficult, because I just feel so much guilt and so much like regret after saying those things. But one thing I've really channeled in, and with psychology, it's been really helpful, is journaling. I've been loving mindfulness. I've been loving like meditation and rerouting thoughts. So I actually have a journal that has a like thermometer or a little gauge about how I feel during the day. And I can fill it up, and then I can write different emotions and different times and what triggered it. And just rerouting those cognitive behavioral paths and rethinking them has really been helping me shape and eliminate those negative pathways, and just kind of understand more and more of how I can approach it in a different way and what kind of things and words and other types of strategies I could use.
Yeah, there's all these tools, like
Yes.
mindfulness and breath work and just being able to put a name to your emotion and taking a step back and going, okay, this is happening, and I need to be able to ensure that I prevent it. And there's so many ways that we need to be able to mitigate the problems. But when it does happen, right, you need to be able to, talk it out with someone, or talk it out with the person that you wrong to. And then I think the biggest thing for me is like not giving into anger too. It's just because I don't think, maybe 99% of the time, I don't think anger is useful. Maybe in 1% of the time when you're actually like fighting someone or you're trying to, save someone's life. But I think there's this quote that I wrote down. I want to read it. As you can tell, I love quotes.
Yes.
They
are to live by. Some are very insightful.
Emotions causes bias, but it also causes motivation. As such, when we're most likely to act is when our judgment can be trusted least. Solution is do not trust thoughts you have while emotional. Instead, pause and wait for the feeling to pass before acting.
Yes.
And it's just, when you're angry, you're in it. Like you're in it. Or when you're anxious or when you're resentful, and it's just a mental soup of negativity. And when you jump in there and you swim around, it doesn't not feel good, and you want to keep wallowing in that. And when you don't have any of these tools, you sink and you drown, and you end up dragging those around with you.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing either. Having that willpower to stop and think, like those golden rules I was taught as a kid: think before you talk, think before you act, think before you text. It happens with messaging people or saying things out loud. You really got to have the willpower to stop, even while you're sweaty and shaking and just so upset in the moment. Because I know when I go into this different world when I get upset, and it's so hard to just bring yourself out of it and snap out of it. And it really takes a lot of practice to get it there.
I know someone who is a close person in my life, and anytime he gets in a rage, he forgets. Like he actually forgets. Like he'll be jumping around and he'll just be in such like a fervor of rage and negativity, and he'll end up destroying stuff around him too. And his eyes would be bloodshot, but he doesn't remember a lot of it, and he's not aware of what he's doing. It's like I don't know. It's
almost like an amnesia kind of thing. It's like you temporarily forget about it.
I'm sure he is to some degree, but he doesn't really, he's not as aware as he could be had he taken a breath. And it's just, it can be very powerful.
Absolutely, yeah. Breathing is such an important thing too. We get so angry, we hyperventilate, and just controlling those breathing tactics. Like I do a lot of box breathing with the 4, 4, 4, 4, and just counting down, even channeling all your other senses, like channeling and focusing your attention with your eyes, or hearing things, or honing in on smells, tastes, touches. Like I'm very, very sensitive to fabrics and things. Like even this chair would be like, if I could feel this or just focus on some sort of sense, then it can bring you back to reality just a bit quicker, a bit easier,
That's great advice. And a lot of people don't know that when they get so caught up in their emotions. Mindfulness is a great tool where you just, because when you're in your thoughts, okay, maybe you got there's a breakup, or there's some thing that you can't figure out, bad task, low self-esteem. If it's out of your control. But then focusing on, let's say, this chair right here, it's blue, focusing on my breath, focusing on what's in front of me, the glass of water in front of me, the scent, it brings you back to reality. And then you forget for that, the 30 seconds that you actually controlled your cognition, you're able to reel it in, and then you can just feel everything around you. But not having that is just so heavy. because you get into that mental soup of negativity and you just like, it's your burden. It's like 1,000 pounds on your back. And it's just, how did you go about learning this? Was it at a point where it was just, life was just too much and you needed a way out? Like, what pushed you to be able to learn all these things?
It was really honestly in that big change from high school to university. I had a lot of big life events, a lot of scary life events, and you kind of really can't prepare for those kind of things. They just kind of come at you. It's kind of like you kind of just explode one day, and it's like, okay, I just need to pick up the pieces. This is something I need to work on. I can't ask other people for help. I can't rely or depend on people. I need to become independent, and I need to learn and hone in on these things of what can I do better for myself. So just that constant rumination and my anxiety and those constant feelings of like, I just want this to stop, just really made me be like, do my research and focus in on my things and become very detail oriented about my body and about my physical sensations, especially. That really just helped me get more insight on myself.
Kudos to you for being the person to not curling up in a ball and waiting for life to save you. Because I mean, there's a lot of people that love us, say the family, some friends, but at the end of the day, there's only you that can save you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
Only you can do the breath work. Only you can do the studying, the workouts, the Pilates.
Exactly. You have to have the motivation.
Yeah. And while we do care about our friends and family, everybody's got their problems, say, and certainly for me, I want to be the one that unburdens someone rather than burden someone. I know that's just like, I know I'm aware of when things get tough too, and when I can't handle it all alone by myself, but it's also taking that responsibility,
yes.
Taking that accountability of, okay, there are tools out there, and yeah, just going out and finding them, putting them into practice and honing in on them.
Absolutely.
What role has introspection of your emotions played in fostering healthy relationships with your family, best friends, and past or future romantic partners?
I'd say a lot of being vulnerable. And I know you've talked about this topic a lot, but vulnerability is the key for so many things. Absolutely. Me too.
Yeah.
And it's been such a hard topic because, no one really wants to admit they're wrong. It's a gross feeling, but that's how you grow. That is how you grow, is admitting your mistakes and really just realizing it. Like, especially in past relationships, like just admitting things don't work, or admitting that, hey, I did something to upset you and I'm sorry, or just talking it out and having those calm conversations when you're not like that just helps you really put things and line up your ducks and just realize, okay, from start to end, what kind of things happen? How did it unravel? What things triggered it? What areas do I react in, good or bad? And that's just really helped me, become friends with people who I know are safe, or who I know who I can get along with better. And definitely makes me learn with my mom and my family too, of like how I can approach things better with them too. Because at the end of the day, yeah, it's like the conversations you have with them are the ones that really help you realize how you'll act with people.
Yeah. And definitely looking into and seeing your part in these, the connections that you foster and kind of the role that you have, positive or negative. Some of it's ugly, like some of it's just like really uncomfortable, and like a lot of people don't like to look within because it's uncomfortable, and we don't like to be the one at fault. But when you truly look in and you go, okay, maybe I was the one that upset that situation. I could have handled it better. I shouldn't have said that in that tone. And sure, maybe that other person is wrong, but I also played a part in it, right? And that's kind of, how have you absorbed that?
I really like to do a lot of perspective taking. I think that really just helps us kind of see how we are and like it from a third person point of view. So every time I do get into an argument, or like I've lost a lot of my best friends from high school, like just grown out of friendships with them. And I just like to put myself in their shoes, being like, what kind of things, or what kind of friendship qualities, or what kind of emotional attributes do I bring to a friendship or a relationship with like an ex-boyfriend or like a potential partner, and like how will that affect the relationships in my future, or how will that affect our interactions together? I just really like to analyze how it would look from their perspective and what kind of energy, what kind of words, and what kind of behaviors I'm giving off to them. And it just really helps me kind of analyze myself and how I can be better too.
Yeah, beautiful. With every relationship that does go wrong, you can learn something out of them. Like that, the ex-boyfriend, the ex-friends, and I always look back to and I go, I could have been a better boyfriend. I could have been a better friend. I could have been there more. But I prioritized being cool, or I prioritized just thinking about myself and just being right. And what I've learned too is being right isn't necessarily the correct answer, because certainly it could destroy relationships. I mean, maybe the person is wrong and maybe you are right, but kind of putting that into their face and kind of rubbing it in is certainly very unhealthy. That I've had to learn the hard way, because I've always wanted to be right. Like, oh, this is it. This is the only answer. But then it's like, no, like that. This is not helpful for the relationship. And why does it even matter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also just like, what is right? Right is such a subjective thing, because people have their opinions, and opinions aren't facts, right? So just having differing opinions and having differing opinions and outlooks on things are also something that's really important in friendships. So sometimes you won't have the same political views or religious beliefs or hobbies, interests in that, but they're you're able to complement each other and yin yang each other and still coexist without having that kind of conflict. You just need to be able to, have that introspection, like you said, and be able to work with that and have a healthy coexisting relationship with people.
Yeah, just because it's a differing opinion doesn't mean that you shouldn't be friends with that person.
Exactly.
I feel in today's kind of time, a lot of people won't associate with people that don't have the same beliefs, that don't kind of cater to their own beliefs, because it's that cognitive dissonance that they feel, hey, that, oh, that person is wrong, I'm right. There's no point in learning about their beliefs. But no, you're kind of closing the door on an opportunity of a friendship, of maybe a job opportunity, or later down the year when we're all successful, hopefully, that they could be a friend that is there and they could provide you insight onto the field that they're in. And one thing that I've been trying to implement that's very tough is assuming that every single person that you meet has something that you don't know. They're an expert on something.
Yes.
And that's kind of the biggest kind of tool I've internalized to be, or not fully, but trying. But yeah, how would you describe your anxiety? Like, how does that?
I've always tried to externalize it or make it into something physical that I can see. I'm a very visual person. I like to describe it as black goo, because it almost weighs you down and it sticks you and gets you in this paralysis kind of state. So I just really like to externalize it and visualize it and see it in front of me, so that way I know how I can deal with it, and just gives me a better approach of what characteristics and how it makes me feel. Because pulling out those emotions and really honestly feeling them and describing them, whether it's writing down or talking to someone about them, or even just using colors and scents and that, just I'm a very, very sensitive with sensory experiences, just has really helped me understand what it truly is, because anxiety is different for everybody. And you can always learn and understand what it is from other people's point of views too.
Okay. So you kind of manifests in ways that you don't really know, and so you kind of externalize it onto a physical reality, so then you could put a name to it.
Yes.
Did I absorb that correctly?
Yeah. I really like to just visualize things instead of feelings, as things in front of me. So I just like to really make it something in front of me, so I could see what's that doing and what it could do to me, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Okay. So what is that anxiety? What does that look like in front of you?
Well, once it, I was saying that black goo, once it gets on me, it makes me stuck, or it makes one part of me unable to function. So I like to look at my body and be what is it doing to me? How is it how is it making me act? And I like to just take a step back and just be like, how is it making me react? And what is it making me say to people I love? Or what is it making me do? Or how is it functioning my daily living?
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned the black goo, but I wasn't so sure.
Yes, I have to conceptualize
but that makes sense now. I think definitely putting a visual kind of proponent to anxiety or whatever, insert X emotion, is really helpful in making sure that you do get rid of that black goo, right?
Yeah, or even just containing it. Like, I've done a lot of like putting things away so you don't have to deal with them, like putting them in a safe or locking it up. Just really helps you kind of just separate it from your physical entity to something else.
That's dope. I like that.
Yeah.
So with defeating comparison and running marathons to keep up with others,
yes,
how has the tendency to compare yourself to others been a thief to your happiness, and what steps have you taken to combat this mindset?
It's still an ongoing process, especially as a young 22-year-old woman. I'm in that phase where it's just always like, why is my life not the same as someone else's? Like, I just having a different life experience or not being on the trajectory of who is around me has just really made me nervous of, am I going the right place? Am I doing the right thing? And then it just caused this catastrophe and this like falling apart explosion in my brain of like, will I be doing the right thing? Will my life be worth it? All these just crazy thoughts in my head. And then just, it makes me explode with anxiety.
Well, especially with the advent of social media.
Yes.
And we're constantly bombarded with people who are living their best lives, and just the 1% of perfect people with their perfect bodies. And then I've listened to many podcasts about these different scientists talk about how it actually really affects women in particular, because you guys are more kind of beauty oriented, and just with that comes kind of that status, right? And when you go on social media and you see that, this popular girl is on her 10th vacation, and what am I doing? I'm just at work. You get to internalize that, and you get to think that that's real life, but it's not.
No.
You don't know that person, and like, who knows? They could be having a terrible time in Hawaii, right? And do you find that your friends also struggle with that kind of?
I find that a lot of my friends are focused just on putting a good image to having a good image for social media. And that's something I've always struggled with too, is with like numbers and like quantitative amounts to defy your worth. Like, especially growing up in high school and with like clothing sizes is such a struggle with women. It's like, why should a number describe what your worth is? Or why should a picture, whether how colorful, how skinny, or how tan you look, should make you feel as good? Or why should 10,000 likes versus 200 make you feel like you're better in society than someone else, right?
Yeah. It's great that they've added kind of the hidden likes on Instagram. And I see that, and like, I never really sure I cared about likes, but not to the degree of some girls that I'm friends with. It does take a toll on the mental. It's like, only 80 likes, only 90 likes, but that's a society we live in. Like, people care about likes now. People care about, that's kind of, there's your real life kind of you, but then there's like your social media presence, right? And that's like, rarely will you ever find someone that doesn't have social media. And if they don't, it's kind of, personally, I think it's pretty dope that people, like, some people can go without social media, but for me, I think a lot of my friends, I wouldn't know what's going on. And I know that's like an excuse a lot of people say, but yeah, and I think I kind of have an all right kind of mental game with it. Like, sure, it still affects me. Like, I'll see some popular guy or a person that's doing well, and I just internalize that and go, why am I not doing well? But then I pull myself out and I go, okay, I don't know that person.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know anything about that person. But yeah, what's kind of the main concern that you have with young women these days?
I would say, honestly, it's just the idea with looks and body image. Growing up, I struggled with an eating disorder, and just fluctuating with binging from low weights to high weights was just so difficult for self-esteem and just getting a sense of worth, even going shopping when nothing fits you and you have to buy new clothes, and when you bought just the new clothes, they don't fit anymore. It's be such a struggle, especially, or just honestly, even now as I've gained weight and had a healthier weight, just in society, almost women being sexualized all the time for their body weight.
It's everywhere.
It's
like
everywhere.
Hollywood
and it's so
does
frustrating.
it. You see it on like all the ads.
Yes.
Like I don't know. Has it always been like that? It's always been like that, eh?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just worse because there's more kind of exposure because now we see it everywhere, 24/7, all the time. And I know with the inception of social media and just like there's a correlation towards the depression and anxiety and suicide rates with young women as well.
Yes.
It's tough. Like it's crazy. And I do see it in there's talking to people on campus, some girls, and yeah, just the lack of confidence in there because you're bombarded with all these images of perfect women. When going back to what we talked about, there are no perfect women. You can't even. That's such a futile endeavor.
Exactly.
Can you share how focusing on going at your own speed and celebrating personal milestones has contributed to your happiness and well-being?
Yes. So this has taken me quite a long time to just really fully accept, but just going at my own speed and doing things just for my own, just having gratitude of making little baby steps has really helped me. Like I am fully embracing that I don't have a car and I'm 22 and I can't drive. And, it makes me insecure every single day, but I'm thinking, hey, my carbon footprint is great. Climate change and inflation is awful, but I'm walking everywhere and I'm grateful
saving money?
Yes, exactly. I have 2 legs that can get me from point A to point B. I live in proximity to public transport, and the fact that I'm working towards and I have that ambition and dedication, I think that's just the most important thing, that you just want to do better for yourself. And it just connects all our topics. Like, hey, I'm not just sitting here and doing something. Like I'm getting off my butt and I'm going places and I'm doing just tiny little milestones that'll get me there, because it's not always like a sprint to the finish line. And that's what I've been told. Like, you don't have to go at everyone else's speed. Sometimes the windy road is the better road to take.
Yeah. And there's going to be ups and downs and everything. I mean, you're never going to wake up to ever and have zero problems. That's just not reality. And if you did, I'm religious. That's probably heaven. I think,
Yeah.
I think pure bliss all the time. And then there's this, it goes dopamine. You know dopamine, right?
Oh,
the neurotransmitter for kind of reward and happiness, pleasure. Dopamine is not the pursuit of happiness. It's the happiness of pursuit. So when you're trying to attain these goals of yours, when you're trying to, finish your degree, finish the job that you started, go to work, a very small percentage of all of it is the reward, the result, right? That it's all about kind of the journey.
Yeah.
And if you're not content with the journey, if you're just constantly thinking about, oh, this is going to end, it's going to end I'm going to feel so good when it ends, it's going to feel really lonely, right? Because you're not enjoying the ride. You're only enjoying kind of the view. And I think there's this guy, his name's Morgan Housel, and he had planned a trip to the spot, and he's done all this work to get the ticket and trying to see where he wants to go. And then when he got there, his first thought was, it would be nice to go to this place next time. And it's like we're in that thought of like, oh, once we hit this, once we hit that, it's just we're kind of all over the place. But it's good to kind of rewind and then just feel the feelings as they come, and kind of to mark off, kind of as you said, that like that change in perspective too, that just because I'm not this doesn't mean I'm not doing something that's good for me. And it's to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Yeah.
Did that all kind of make sense?
Absolutely. No, I follow you. My brain's going a mile a minute.
Yeah.
And it's just also, I think, just we always focus on the public perception of what people think of us. Like we want, like you said, with the dopamine, we're constantly in that pursuit of seeking reassurance, seeking like gratification, seeking like good job kind of thing. Like we always want to be reassured by somebody that we're doing good. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. And that's what I've just always tried to live by. I want to be outside of the box, and it's okay if I'm different, and it's okay if I'm not the same as everybody else, because that's what life's about. We're all different. We all have different thumbprints. We all have different DNA. It's good to be unique.
Yeah, it's good to be you, because
Really.
out of the millions of possibilities, even like the sperm and the egg, like we've all learned it in health class where it's just like super unlikely to be that sperm to hit the egg, right? And then being the person that you are, there's all these choices. You could have been this person, you could have been that person, and like you're unique in your own way, and then there is a place for you. I think that's, I know with a lot of cynicism these days, a lot of people are like, oh, but like I was dealt the wrong cards, or oh, this person's so much better. But yes, that's the roots of evil, comparison. Like,
yes.
Stop doing that. Like, you are your own person. There is something, like there's someone out there who would kill to be in your spot. Like being in the first world country, and just being healthy, being able to go to school and having access to a gym. Those are all blessings. Those are all things that people in other unfortunate circumstances do not have. It's a privilege. We forget that.
We do. We live in an amazing place, and we all want what we don't have. There's always going to be somebody that wants what you want. Exactly.
And it's that hedonic treadmill. Hey, once you hit that goal, then you're always going to want more of that. And then we hit that, and then you look back and you go, I didn't have that at that time. Just kind of the mind. You ever struggle with that?
Yes, it's almost like an addiction. It's like you always want to be better, and it's never good enough. But you always you have to just take a step back and be like, we're in a good place and we're doing good for ourselves. Like each day, just waking up and experiencing, going to do something is it's good, and it's progress, and it's evolving and maturing. Your 20s, that's what you're supposed to be doing, is figure out your life, making mistakes. That's how you grow.
That's how you form your character. That's how you get out of here alive and actually live.
Totally.
Because a lot of people, think they're immortal. I feel like that. Like I feel like I'm going to be here for the rest of my life, but no, it's one day it's going to be lights out, and who knows?
Who knows what'll happen?
Yeah. What advice do you have for people who feel pressured to run marathons to keep up with others and struggle with feeling not good enough?
I would honestly just say, just take a deep breath and just take a look at your surroundings and just embrace it, absorb it all in, because life moves too fast. Like that quote from, what was that movie called? Is it Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
I have seen that movie though.
I'm like, why can't I remember the movie name? But it does. Life moves too fast, and before you know it, it'll be in the blink, and it'll just be gone. Like we're not in high school anymore. We're losing our facial features of our young adultness. Like we're getting close to 25. Like that's insane. But just doing things and being grateful for what you have accomplished is how I've been able to not get these insecure feelings and not get the anxiety of constantly keeping up with people. Like I'm going to apply to MacEwan for psych nursing, and it's been my 5th year of my degree, and watching everybody that was 2020 grads graduate without me, it's been difficult. But I know, you know what, this route's going to take me to an even better route, and it's going to be an even better job, and I know where I'm supposed to be, and this is where I'm supposed to be. And I keep telling myself that every day, just these affirmations over and over and over again. And
you have to. It's you have to have that mental loop of, okay, I'm going to be fine. We keep going. We keep going. Because as soon as you lose those thoughts, that positive reinforcement, we just resort to kind of the natural side. And if you're the person that's just gravitates towards negativity, then that's going to be the mental makeup of your mind. And that's true for me too. I need to constantly be telling myself, okay, you're fine. You've done this, you've done that. And it's just highlighting it over and over.
Yes.
But it's like that cognitive behavior therapy. Like that's just, we learn all about that. And it's just, that's how you change your perception on things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay. What's your favorite movie?
There's so many. It's between comedy and horror. I mean, I love Step Brothers.
Yeah.
I could probably recite that in my sleep.
I just wanted to add a random question.
Absolutely. I love it. What's your
Step
favorite
Brothers.
movie?
My favorite movie? Shawshank's Redemption.
It's a good one. Classic.
Have you seen that?
Yes, of course I have.
That's so good. Hey.
I just love any good like action or any good movie that has a really good purpose.
Yeah.
Makes you think and question, like my kind of philosophical view.
Mm-hmm. Like they don't make good comedies like Step Brother anymore.
They don't.
It'd be too offensive these days.
Yeah, the world's too soft. As much as I'm like, oh, sorry, everybody. It's just the world is too soft.
Have you seen The Interview? Where they like, it was like Seth Rogen and James.
I have heard of it. I've never watched
Franco.
it.
Yeah, they just make fun of Kim Jong-un in North Korea.
Oh God.
And yeah, he got banned in North Korea. And
No way.
not that people are even allowed to listen to anything.
That's
I don't know. Have you
insane.
seen those? Do you guys ever learn about North Korea and social studies when you're in high school?
Probably briefly. I don't really remember lots about it.
Like the people are like brainwashed.
That's
It's
insane.
crazy.
What?
Yeah.
God.
They think like Kim Jong-un's a god. Yeah, and he
Well, it's
doesn't
so
like.
isolated there.
Yeah, they just brainwash him. And if you ever try to escape, they'll kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just such a gated, isolated place. Like no influence of any other cultures.
Yeah, it's scary. But yeah,
Anyways.
letting go of the victim identity and living life in the present. Can you share your journey of overcoming the identity of a victim from your past experiences and how you began to live in the present?
Absolutely. So this has been a tough one to talk about. I almost felt lots of shame and lots of embarrassment just having familial conflict and domestic violence. I never had the greatest relationship with my dad. And, just dealing with all that trauma and all the societal stigma of family abuse has just really got me caught up in scapegoating and blaming all my problems on that and not taking accountability for, hey, I can change this. And hey, that's in the past, and just kind of letting go of that. And I just really think that it's important for everybody just to live in the present and to not dwell in the past, because that's how you get in your head and that's how you overthink and work up and get all these things with mental health troubles like anxiety and like panic attacks, or PTSD is a big one too. That's been hard to overcome. But yeah, just letting go of not being a victim and just being someone who's evolved and grown. Like I like to use the flower analogy. Like you're never going to be able to grow if you don't water yourself, or if you don't branch out and blossom, because that's the only way you're going to be able to flourish in life, is if you just keep going straight. Going backwards is not going to do anything, right? So
These things in life happen to us when we're kids sometimes. There's sometimes when we're teenagers, adults, at any phase. And we can either look at it as, okay, I can learn and grow from this. I can picture myself as a plant and water myself, or I can follow the path of destruction and the victim mentality and go, why did the world do this to me? The world must hate me.
Yes.
And you travel down this path of cynicism, of nihilism, and you blame your parents and you blame your friends and you blame yourself. And that's just, you're not building anything. You're just destroying kind of the makeup of who you are. And next thing, nobody wants to be around that.
Huh.
And I cut into phases where I do feel like a victim sometimes, because my childhood wasn't all that easy. And I think I still go through a lot of hardship and kind of, I see some of my friends and they're doing well. And I hear about all these stories about these successful people, but then it's not their lives, right? And certainly taking accountability is empowering.
Exactly.
When did you realize that playing the victim wasn't a reliable strategy?
Well, once we really got back to moving to Shore Park, 'cause we were living out in Edmonton with family friends while everything was going on, and just with all that uncertainty, it just really didn't help me have that responsibility or figure out that why. So once we moved back here and just kind of getting grounded and getting back on our feet and, being able to do things for ourselves again, that's what made me realize, like, I can't keep blaming my past for who I am, because I am responsible for how I am and how I act and what I can do better for myself, like getting a job and, continuing school and maintaining friendships and talking to people and asking for help, because it's so hard to ask for help sometimes. And it's so stigmatized of, oh, these people, like, you have to approach them or don't approach them or it'll trigger them, or, like, everybody's different with that. And just, it's not bad to ask for help. And I've been always shamed in asking for help or making mistakes of not being able to do something right because I've been scared to speak up, because that's what I've been trained to do, is that you need to be able to do things for yourself. You need to be able to fend for yourself. But it's okay to ask people, and it's okay to need somebody else to assist you.
Mm. Yeah, it's tough for people, right? Because then when you do acknowledge that you have a problem and you do seek help, then it becomes even more real.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just tackling the beast and actually fighting it. It's just so uncomfortable. It's good to just keep running away from it, right?
Absolutely,
It's just
yeah.
it's more comforting to just keep ignoring the problem, but then it ends up being more and more powerful up until you've dug yourself such a deep hole that it's just you can't get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you say play victim, can you elaborate on that? What does that mean for you? When things go wrong, what is it, kind of the mental makeup, or how do you go about that when you were in the mindset of playing victim?
It's really just honestly with my emotions and the way I do things, is like the way I act out and the way I treat people. I'd be like, oh, because of my dad, I do this, or, oh, you wouldn't understand because of so and so and so. It's just always these quick responses, and without thinking, things that we do that we just constantly live in a cycle in, and not realizing that they're destructive to people around us. Like, doing things without realizing them is just, it's not going to get you anywhere, and it's not going to change what happens. Like, I don't want to ever be like that person was doing that to me. So it's just like how a lot of children who were psychologically or verbally or had mental abuse, they become like the bullies become, or the bully people become the bullies. They're kind of like the same thing. It's like, I want to break those habits. And I realized I'm only going to break those habits if I stop living the fact of, oh, woe is me, or this happened to me. It's just taking your life in your own hands and changing it, being like, I don't want to be associated with that anymore, because associating with it is just going to keep that psychological warfare going and destroying your self-esteem and your mental health slowly.
Yeah, break that revenge. And there's this quote with Marcus Aurelius: the best revenge is not to be like your enemy.
Exactly.
All the time I hear it, that child abuse, it's perpetuated because the abuser or the child that is abused ends up becoming the abuser, and it's just like this cycle. And then, as you mentioned, the bullies, that the person that is bullied ends up becoming the bully, and they kind of they have this mental framework of, oh, that's happened to me, that gives me all the excuse to do it to others. And there's this writer, and I forget his name, but he talks about, if you look at the origin of the hero and the villain, they all they have the same kind of tough upbringing. Maybe mom, dad died, maybe an orphan, but the hero goes, I experienced that pain. I don't want other people to feel it. I want to do good to the world. But the villain experiences pain and goes, I experienced it. I want to hate. I hate the world. They did this to me. But they're both the same kind of, they're very similar childhoods where the world did do wrong to them. But how do you go about it? Right?
Exactly. Like, you don't want other people to suffer just because you suffered.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be able to, everyone should pay the price, or everyone should succumb to you. It's just a very narcissistic view that I don't want to be. I've always wanted to be benevolent and kind and helping other people. And if I can learn from my mistakes, and again, with my degree of psychology, help other people, I want to use that like first person like perspective. I can put myself in your shoes with empathy versus sympathy.
Yeah. You empower yourself.
Exactly.
With the pain and suffering that you had to endure, and you want to ensure that these people that were previously in kind of a similar situation that you were in have the help, and they can get out of it, and you want to be there for them. Or there's also prevention, where you ensure that the people that that have these narcissistic parents or have abusive kind of households are taken care of, and there are systems in place to ensure that the kids in need do not grow up in this toxic, dangerous environment.
Exactly. I also think it's just a lot of, as hard as this is to say, is a lot of like forgiveness and acceptance of the past. Like we can't change the past, just like with anxiety, we can't go back and fix things. We just got to keep going forward. And as much pain and harm as I've had in my life, just dwelling on how much this person has hurt me and how much this person has affected this and ruined this chance for me or done this to me, it's not going to do me any good. Like, I'm just like, I wish all the best for this person. And I wish that they could realize that like they can get help and they have people who love them. Is the only thing I can really do is just forgive as much as I am hurt, because we're not built on the earth to just hate everybody. And you're not going to get anywhere if you just always are consistently hating and pessimistic to everybody.
What does forgiveness mean to you?
I wouldn't say forgiveness means like just giving kindness, but forgiveness is almost just like, I understand you're hurting. I understand you hurt me and I hurt you. And I don't want to do that again. And I understand you have emotions. Just acknowledging, hey, this person's hurt me and I see them in a negative viewpoint, but also like, you're human. We have flaws and humans make mistakes. And just that even this person's blood related to me, like they love me at the end of the day, even though all this happened. I'm like, they do love me and I just want to put it behind me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that response. And you can love from afar too. Hey, maybe this person is not the best. It won't be healthy for one to be around them. And you've tried your best, but being around them is just deteriorating your mental health. So I found that with some people in my life too. It's just not healthy for me to be around them. And it's distancing yourself. And forgiveness is a big factor in being able to go about it and not feel resentful.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people that hold on to that grudge that happened 10 years. I know some very close people in my life still talk about what happened to them 2 decades ago. And it's horrifying. I witnessed that and I'm like, that is weighing you down.
Yeah, how do you still remember that? That's my thing. It's like things go one ear out the other if it doesn't bother me. Like, why channel your energy into rehashing it and reliving those experiences?
Yeah, you could be thinking about how to cook, sharpen your cooking skills. You could be thinking about being thankful for life. Instead, you think about that person who wronged you, and maybe they are at fault. Maybe they are an evil person and maybe they were out to get you. Sure, it checks all the boxes for a person that is seeking wrong and seeking the bad in you and bringing that out. And you know what? Like, that's them. Like, you don't have to hold that within you and weigh you down.
Yeah, that's not your lesson to learn. You're just doing things for yourself.
True.
Yeah.
How have societal stigmas around trauma affected your healing process, and what steps have you taken to let go of these stigmas?
That's a good question. It's been always a challenge for me to fit into society and put myself not in these labels and feelings of how I'm supposed to feel after an event, because sometimes you seek the reassurance of others, of other people who have experienced similar things to you, of how should I react? Is it normal I'm reacting this way? Like, do people normally have this happen when this happens? And I've just been processing it like step by step, my emotions, like what happens, and just keeping note and taking note of it and practicing more of that journaling and mindfulness. It's really been helping me just really realize that if I'm not experiencing the same thing as everyone else wants me to experience, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing just to have different experiences and have different viewpoints of how to process things, and that it might not take forever for me to heal, or it might take me a long time to heal, but however long it takes, like, I just want to keep my head up and not dwell in the past and dwell in certain things that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, there's a solution to everything. I mean,
Absolutely.
Think of all the problems you've had in the past. The problem that you had 3 months ago, you don't even think about it today. And the problem you had 2 years ago, well, that was everything to you. you don't think about it. You
No.
got over it. And if you didn't, it's going to be solution, because the problems that you had prior to that had a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you just try, right? It's that you get up and try, that action.
Exactly.
If you want to work on your health, if you don't feel confident, there is Pilates, there is weightlifting, there's running, there's groups, and there's seeking help. And if you're feeling down and depressed, there's people you can talk to. There's opportunities out there that can help you feel like you have purpose. There's a funny movie you can watch, right? Something. And I feel that lack of hope and lack of purpose is definitely fueling a lot of kind of the mental illnesses these days. And I'm no expert by any means, but I just know that if I didn't have kind of that purpose and kind of that self-introspection of, okay, I need to forgive, and I need to be able to be aware of my actions, of when I am being doubtful, when I'm being hateful, when I'm being not the person that I want to strive towards, I'm aware. And a lot of people don't do that, man.
No.
Like, what do you think the problem is
I think the problem is just people aren't realizing that they can just take a minute and they can just realize that they can just work on their own things at their own speed. Like, it's not always, people tell you to go sometimes seek therapy or go do classes or go to something that's going to help you with this, but sometimes like that's not going to help at that moment. So just doing your things at your own speed, really, like, or just doing things that are making you feel good. Sometimes, it's going to make you feel more overwhelmed doing something that everyone else is doing, and it's okay if it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah, it's like, because your friend is an ultra runner or just this person that's just super into novels and that helps them, doesn't necessarily mean it will help you. You have to find kind of your own, and you have to be able to like feel it through. Okay, does reading this make you feel better? Is it making you one step closer to your ambitions and goals?
Yeah.
And I have this thing that I always think about when I'm undergoing an action, and it's, does this action align with my values?
Yes.
If not, then I'm not going to do it, right? Whether it be about discipline, about honesty, about authenticity. Like, if I just go with kind of external values or external kind of an external barometer of money, of kind of fame, it's all very, it's society and people deciding if I'm going to be happy for myself. It's like, if you kind of externalize the happiness to the number of likes, to the amount of money, to the grades, then your happiness is based on that thing happening. If you look within and you go, okay, I'm going to be happy because I tried my best, or because I fostered love, or because I was vulnerable, or because, I was resilient and I survived another day. And then you take it day by day and you do what's best for you. That's when I experience true happiness. And
yes,
of course, I don't follow that all the time, because like this week, I've kind of just been, nobody's listening to me. I'm working so hard. Why am I not the top podcaster yet? Like, I've had 100 downloads last week. Why am I only getting 50? And it's going back to being able to implement the lessons that we learn. Like, we all know what's good and bad for us, hey? But we just, it's that constant reinforcement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And knowing what's going to push us and what's going to do good for us. At the end of the day, it's always what we feel comfortable with and what we think we can push ourselves to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you agree with that? Do you know what's good and bad for you?
I do know what's good and bad for me, but it's always going to change. As we get older, we're going to know our boundaries, we're going to know our limits, and we're going to know how much we can push ourselves to do and how much we're willing to take, and what life events could get thrown at us and how we'll be able to deal with it better or worse, or is it new or is it familiar kind of thing.
Yeah, you're right. what advice would you give to others struggling to move past their traumatic experiences and focus on personal growth and healing?
I would just honestly just take it with a grain of salt of how you're feeling, because oftentimes processing emotions can be a whirlwind. You feel like you're taking one step forward, or you can feel like you're taking a couple steps back with your progress. Because like just the same thing with anxiety, like progress isn't linear. And sometimes it takes us to go, like with the stair analogy, I find like climbing the stairs, sometimes you climb and you fall. But then once you get those bruises, you bandage up, you learn, you see how long it takes to heal, and then you try it again, a couple other stairs. And, sometimes you'll take 3 at a time. Sometimes you take 1. Sometimes you need to take a breath because it just feels like it's too much. You feel winded, but you will get to the top of the stairs eventually. And, no one will probably be fully healed because we're all constantly facing adversity and trauma and stress, but you'll be able to cope with it better. And trauma is just always going to be within you, but you just got to learn different ways to cope with it and what is best for you, honestly.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Maddie, for coming on the long-term podcast.
Thank you so much for having this conversation. It was such a meaningful and great time. I learned so much.
Yeah,
I'm really
have you?
grateful for
Was
it.
I that insightful? I learned so much too.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any last words? Or I guess the last question is kind of like a outro, sort of. But any other words for the listeners, viewers?
Honestly, having these kind of conversations is just so mind-picking and mind-stimulating, because it just helps you just really understand from another's perspective, and just talking with people about it just really gives you more insight about yourself and how other people can help you realize things about yourself that you didn't even know. Like there was things you talked about that just were mind-blowing to me. I'm like, I didn't even know I could feel like that, or other people could feel like that. And I just think it's really awesome that you do this so we can be able to have these conversations and learn things about each other and, foster these type of relationships or bond similar experiences.
I appreciate you, Maddie.
Of course.
And as always, to everyone listening and watching, there is a place for you in this chaotic world. Never lose hope, strengthen your faith, and keep it long term. Peace.